Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Steve Kenyon Podcast. I'm Steve Kenyon, and the regular season in professional rodeo has come to an end. We've been talking about it a lot here on this show. We've been talking about it a lot on the Cowboy Channel, and now it is time for the countdown to the Wrangler National Finals Rodeo, which, of course, starts on December the 5th in Las Vegas. Today's show is being sponsored by Wrangler, the official Western Wear Pro Rodeo. Long live Cowboys. Thank you to the Justin Boot Company, the standard of the West since 1879, to the Grandview at Las Vegas. That's the place we stay during the Wrangler National Finals Rodeo. You can find out about the Grandview by logging on to dailymanagementresorts.com. The Grandview just features so many amenities that you will really like, especially if you want to get just a little bit away from the hustle and bustle and all the busy stuff going on in Vegas. If you're going to be there for an extended period of time, you get rooms at the Grandview that have kitchens and even a place to wash your clothes. The Grandview, dailymanagementresorts.com, right across the street from the South Point, just a real quick drive away from the Thomas and Mack. Thank you to the folks at Prefer. Thank you to the Gooding Pro Rodeo in Gooding, Idaho, and, of course, to Classic Ropes and Classic Equine. They're going to bring you our featured interview coming up today. That featured interview is with Kollin VonAhn, the world champion team roper who is headed back to the Wrangler NFR for the first time in almost a decade. World standings leaders have been updated, and a lot of records set. Following the Governor's Cup in Sioux Falls, South Dakota over the weekend, Shad Mayfield, number one in the all-around. He set a record. They've broken the tie-down roping regular season record 3 years in a row. Shad's going to finish the regular season with $287,722. That breaks Riley Webb's record of $280,000 last year. The biggest record breaker, if you will, was Damian Brennan from Australia in the saddle bronc riding. $280,019 for the year. He goes in number one in the world standings. The old record was set in 2022 by Sage Newman at $253,000. Dalton Massey, steer wrestler from Oregon, set a new single season, or regular season, I should say, earnings record, $203,013. The old record was set last year, and it was set by Dalton Massey, so he broke his own record. Rocker Steiner goes in as a number one bareback rider, more than $233,000. Dustin Agaskiza and Levi Lord over $201,000 for the year. The top team in the team roping. Hayes Waite and TJ Gray battling back and forth as the money is counted. I feel like I'm watching election night. When the PRCA sent out its press release on Monday, Hayes was number one in the world standings, and I looked at ProRodeo.com earlier today, and TJ's back on top at $244,000 for the year. WPRA has taken a look at their numbers. Haley Kinzel won the rodeo in Sioux Falls, over $40,000. She is number one in the barrel race heading into the NFR, and the number one money winner in the breakaway roping, the Sioux Falls champion, Shelby Beaujolais-Medjid. She is the reigning world champion. She roped the fastest calf in Sioux Falls, a 1.6 in the championship round. Before we get to our featured interview, I want to say thank you to M2 Ranch Jerky, m2-ranch.com. You can order teriyaki, you can order buffalo, you can order beef, you can order venison, you can order elk, you can order a variety of different flavors. I mentioned the teriyaki because I really like the teriyaki, but I really like all of the jerky they offer. m2-ranch.com. Thanks to Unbeatable Feeds. Check them out at unbeatablefeeds.com. And a big thank you to the Gooding Pro Rodeo in Gooding, Idaho, and of course to Next Gen Rodeo. Check out the Next Gen Rodeo app and all of the social media posts that we have on Next Gen Rodeo on Facebook and more. A lot of interviews and a lot of fun things that we do at Next Gen Rodeo. Let's hear from the man who has qualified to get back to the Wrangler NFR almost a decade after he really kind of stepped away from rodeoing full-time. I'm talking about Kollin VonAhn, the two-time world champion team roper. He and partner Andrew Ward won the rodeo in Sioux Falls. They picked up one check. They did not place in either of the two preliminary rounds, but they did win the 4 round, and that's worth $30,000. That's enough to guarantee them both the back number in December. Kollin VonAhn heads to the NFR 8th in the world standings. Here's that interview with Kollin VonAhn. You made it. You're headed back to the NFR almost a decade later. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's exciting.
Tell me about the Governor's Cup. You and Andrew made the one run you needed to make up there. You were 3-9 in the 4 round, which was worth $30,000. Tell me about that rodeo.
What a unbelievable experience, and then to have the opportunity at that kind of money this time of year is, I mean, it's for me. I mean, it was a lifesaver. And we honestly kind of put all of our eggs in that basket. I think I still had 4 or 5 rodeos left over. I know Andrew had a handful of rodeos left over, but in the position I was in, I thought I needed a big win to get pulled off what I needed to pull off, and that was the spot to do it.
Kollin, your NFR qualifications the first time around, and we'll talk more about this in a minute, were like from 2009 to 2015, right?
Yep.
In any of those years, did you have to do the end of the season scramble, going to every rodeo in the country the last 2 weeks of the year from Pendleton on to get into the NFR? This was a little bit different feeling, I'm guessing, wasn't it?
Oh, for sure. I have. Well, one year I missed the finals by $3.
Oh,
I
I
think
remember
I
that.
hold
Yep.
that record. And so I know what it's like to be at that time of year in crunch time. But this had a different feel to me with the big money at the end of the year, like it is. I actually didn't enter Pendleton, which people said I was crazy. There was some things I did a little different, kind of on my own time, but. When you have the opportunity at that kind of money at that time of year, to me it's about you need to rope good when it's time to rope good, and if you can catch there, that's the spot to do it. And so we just kind of put our belief in the fact of, if I was going to catch 3 or 4 steers, I would like it to be at Sioux Falls and not at a rodeo that paid 1,500.
Yeah. You didn't place in either one of the two go rounds. In fact, you roped a leg on your second one, right? And still managed to,
Yep.
to sneak into the 8 round.
Yes. And which I will say one thing about the team roping up there, that might have been the best rack of team roping in maybe PRCA history. I
That
think the
opening night, especially, was oh my God, you were 4-4 and didn't get close to a check.
I was 4-4 and was eighth
Yeah.
after the first. Yeah, and so yeah, I mean, and that's what. But that, I think that speaks to the production of the Governor's Cup. They were very good steers. I mean, everything was done at an elite level, and then you got the best guys in the world too. So that,
Yeah.
that it should be that way.
So let me get a little bit nosy, and then I want to get back to the Governor's Cup and go into this year's NFR. As I remember it, 2015 came around. You won a gold buckle. And then you were going to slow down, maybe future. What have you been doing for the last decade, Kollin?
When 2015 ERA year and the ERA kind of started to take off, and I chose to stay home. Then I in 2000, the summer of 2016, I had my daughter,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a time I felt like I needed to be home. My family was getting started, and it was kind of time for a little break for me. And so I stayed home, and I started gathering some horses up. The futurity stuff was just kind of starting to get in the works. And, you know, it was always one of them deals. I always wondered what a guy would do after rodeo. And I thought it was a chance to give it a try before I was too old to know what I was going to do. And so, it was a great experience, and in that time off, I met a guy named Brandon Webb, that he owns a service company, and I had the opportunity to rope with him, and it was kind of a part-time deal where his business that he runs was at the forefront of everything we did. But we still went to quite a few rodeos in that time period. Him and I won Cheyenne together. We had some big wins that were probably notable wins, and
Yeah.
but it was kind of a relaxed type rodeo, and it gave me time to be with my family. It gave me time to start kind of building these fraternity horses. And to be honest, I needed the time to work on my horsemanship, and kind of as that's all evolved, you know, it seems like God's plan works out. But then Andrew Ward lives 45 minutes from me, and we roped all the time anyways. And I was building this horse herd up. I believe my horsemanship's gotten better over the last 9-10 years. And, a guy can only sit down for so long. And when he thinks he's got a chance to go again, and everything lined out perfect. And that's where I was to this year.
Tell me about your partnership with Andrew. He is so consistent. Holds a record or held a record for the NFR average until Patrick and broke it.
Yep.
I think the year or two after, but he is such a consistent roper. Tell me about your partnership with him.
Man, I think he's one of the best in the world, and he's a really neat guy. He's one of them guys. If you can't get along with him, and if you don't love him, there's something wrong with you. And he eats, sleeps, breathes roping. He's got probably one of the best attitudes of anybody I've ever been around. And to me, it was an opportunity to get to rope with him. And we've roped a long time and practiced a long time. I think when he started coming over to my house, he was just a dang kid. I mean, maybe 19, 20 years old. And it's just been one of them deals. I always thought we would rope one day, but you never know in this business if it ever happens. When he finally started getting major success at it, Shooty was roping with his brother-in-law.
Right.
And it was just like the stars lined up for me, is basically what had happened. And I couldn't be more thankful. It's truly a gift for me to get to rope with him.
At the beginning of this year, Kollin, did you intend to go to the NFR? Did you have it in your mind you guys were going to go to the finals?
Yes, I did. I started out, that was my goal. And to be honest, that's a humbling part of this, is it was a bigger struggle than I ever remembered. We had some ups and down times. But I think through my age now, it was never not fun to me. I remember when a guy's not doing good, how depressing it can be, especially when you're out there. And this year, we always kept a great attitude. We always kept thinking the next one's going to get better. And we never did. I don't ever remember it being a hard time to rodeo, even through the slow times. And so it was a heck of an experience for me. And Andrew's he's as good as I get. That's the humbling part, is I really don't think I should have had to have the Governor's Cup to pull off my NFR qualification, but that's the way it was. And we just kind of enjoyed the ride.
Yeah. I was going to look this up, and I ran out of time, and I didn't get a chance to. Do you remember in 2015 what a go-round win paid?
Man, I want to say it was like 17 or 18,000.
And that
was when it was, I think right there in 15 was like the first real money increase. Cause I remember, I think it was like 14 or 15,000. Then my last year out there, Luke and I did really good that year. And, it was like, we won double what we normally should have. And so, but I think it was 17 or 18,000 bucks.
Yeah. It's not quite, but it's almost doubled going back this year.
Yeah. Yeah. That's unbelievable to me.
Yeah. Both years, 2009, I'm looking back on your bio. Both years that you won world titles, 2009 along with Nick Sartain.
Yep.
Placed in 6 go-rounds, won round 4, won the average, and a world title.
Yep.
2015, roping along with Luke Brown, won round 8, placed in 5 other rounds, and again won your 3rd average title and your 2nd world title. That average is an important thing to you, and you're roping behind the right guy to be in the average at the NFR, I think.
Well, I think when you get to the NFR, a guy don't think about the average, but you better, in my opinion, you got to have a style that is able to catch 10 nights in a row. And so I've been out there and had bad luck too.
Yeah.
But I do think that the run that you have tried to perfect before you get out there better be one you can duplicate over and over. And I really think when you're duplicating that run that should work 10 times in a row, there's going to be nights it's fast enough to win the round too.
You are you've got 2 months now. We're doing this interview on October 2nd, so 63 days more or less until the national finals starts. You just made a comment about the run that you try to perfect. Is there an NFR size practice pen and a whole bunch of practice steers somewhere in your not so distant future, along with Andrew? What are you going to do the next couple of months?
This first month we're home, there's so many ropings and so many good jackpots going on that we'll probably stay focused on competing at the ropings. And then about the last 3-4 weeks, I will set an arena up my house. I do have cattle gathered up and getting more gathered up. But there's going to be probably 15-20 days of real hard practice, trying to get real comfortable. That arena is different than anywhere you're at all year. Even the Governor's Cup has the same feel, but there's no feel like the NFR. The cattle run fast, the arena's little, and it seems like it takes a little practice to get comfortable. But once you're comfortable, that's when a guy's ready to go out there.
Okay, so are you ready for Steve's dumb question of the interview? Here
Sure.
we go. Your last trip to the finals was 2015.
Yeah.
Is it going to feel like the first time all over again?
I don't know. I mean, I'm going to be excited. I think, there's somewhere in there after you've made the finals a couple of times in a row, you start feeling like you deserve to be there. They owe it to you to be there. It just starts feeling old hat. I'm probably more grateful now in my life than and so I will be excited to be there. And that's probably the next thing on my mind is I plan on winning. I plan on honestly having a chance at the end. I really want a chance at the end to win another world title, and it's not out of reach. It's not going to be the favorite pick on paper, and I understand that, but I'm going in there with the mindset that I want a chance on the last day. But also with all that said, I'm going to enjoy the experience too.
I'm not gonna try to put any pressure on you because we're not there yet. But you darn sure could find your way on my fantasy team. I'm just gonna tell you that right now, Kollin. Uh, and the reason is this, and I want to ask you about headers. Andrew will be. Correct me if I'm wrong. Andrew will be the third header you've roped with at the NFR, right?
Yep.
Nick Sartain, the first 3 or 4 years, he's a world
Yep.
champion, and Luke Brown, who should be a world champion in my humble opinion. Um,
Yep.
who has been great for a couple of decades and has got 3 average titles, are those 3 guys like each other in any way? Are they very similar? What were they like to, or what are they like to heel behind?
That's what all three of them guys do a very good job handling the steer for me. And some way I find myself into the lucky positions of getting a rope with great guys. And all three of them had a really high catch percentage, especially in that building. And then they make my job easier. And so that's what I think all three of them do. Now, the one thing that's similar too is they're all competitors. They all breathe fire. And
Yeah.
I'm excited to rope with Andrew. He's the youth side of our team that keeps me fired up. But even Luke's going to the NFR, and Luke's one of them guys. You better never count him out either. I mean, he's catching 10 steers,
Yeah.
and so that's what's similar about all of them. They have a high catch percentage, and to me, there's something about the momentum and confidence when you get out there, and catching cattle keeps the ball rolling for you.
Kollin, let me ask you a question that doesn't have anything to do with the National Finals Rodeo, but I'm curious as to your thoughts on it looks to me like the whole futurity program in the team roping business with horses is just blossoming. And
Yeah.
are we? I know that we're seeing horses that are costing more to buy and more valuable to sell now. Are we seeing better horses earlier now than perhaps when you first qualified for the NFR in 2009, or throughout the course of your career? Are we seeing better quality younger horses that are ready to go sooner now because of these futurities, or am I reaching there?
No, without a doubt. I mean, when in 2009, a young horse was 7 or 8 years old. And that was something that you barely even took to the ropings. Today, we're showing horses at 4 years old. And, there was a misconception even for me, is that everybody was like, oh, they need time and you don't want to stress their bones and their joints. And you can overdo anything, but, you know, it's become a science on that actually training horses at a younger age helps their bone density. And through all this, anytime you throw a lot of money at anything, guys learn to get good at it. And
Yeah.
so I believe team ropers as a whole, the whole horsemanship side of it has increased maybe 100%. There's guys that know more about training horses now than they sure ever did in 2009. And it's because there is actually a way to make a living showing them. And then you start getting the best guys trying to perfect that craft, and you end up with a lot of nice horses. Well, the breeding side's taken off. The trainers are better. The breeding's better. And there's just no way the bar's going to be continued to be raised for, I mean, I think big steps over the next 10 years. And then somewhere in there, it's got to slow down. We can only get so good at something, but we're taking giant steps right now. A lot of things seem like you just try to get 0.001% better, and that's your edge. But today in the horse industry, I mean, I see, the first couple years of the fraternities, it doubled every year. I mean, the amount of entries and the amount of horses, the amount of guys showing. And right now we're starting to get a consistent number of guys showing, but the horses are pouring in, and the bloodlines are changing. We're trying to perfect what everybody exactly wants, but it's getting very interesting to me.
You're married to a barrel racer.
Oh yeah.
Very talented barrel racer, national finalist herself in Angie Metters. Um, and two questions, if I might. In Angie's world, the futurities have been a big deal for a long time. She ever
Oh yeah.
look at you and go, "It's about time you team ropers caught up," or anything? Or, I mean, the
Yep.
barrel racing business is futurities have been a major part of that industry.
Yep. Well, and that's what we were behind. I mean, from race horses to cutting to barrel racing to dang near everything but team roping. And I think we were kind of thrown on the back burner of, we never even had a bloodline. If you asked a team roper in 2009 what kind of horse he wanted to ride, he had no idea. Papers didn't even matter.
Hmm.
Um, and so now, I mean, you can go talk to any team roper and start talking horse papers and bloodlines, and they'll have a general idea. That was not around in 2009. I mean, and before, that didn't happen. Shoot, there was not much thought that went into how horses were raised, and we were getting, there was a the stigma of, we were kind of getting the rejects of other disciplines to make team roping horses. And it's turned now to where there's guys breeding team roping horses. There's guys that they're wanting to cross barrel horses with cutting horses.
Yeah.
And so we're starting to get a true bloodline that is actually specifically designed to be a team roping horse. And them weren't even thoughts in 2009.
Yeah.
That wasn't even an option.
Brady Miner's Ray horse. That horse has got as much, what is it, cutting or rein cow horse, whatever it is,
Yep.
bloodline in him as he does team roping.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, I would even argue the fact, if they said, well, what is a team roping horse bred like? Nobody could even write that down on a piece of paper. There was no such thing. And so, we had to be bred like something, and we were either cow horses, cutting horses. There would be, and some of it would be, shoot, it was just my neighbors and we cowboyed on it. And so, we've evolved a long ways into getting into the pedigree of horses, and it started to be where, when a guy starts with a colt, it's with team roping in mind, versus he wasn't good enough to be a cutting horse, so we started team roping on it. And that is where I really believe the quality of horse. You take a really good cutting horse trainer, he's good at his craft too. He trains very, and whether the horse is just too big or whatever the issue was that he didn't make it to be a great cutting horse, he still trained the horse to do things that we don't need in the team roping. And so you had to untrain some things, and to be honest, them cutting trainers were better trainers than team roping horses. So the chances of us untraining it didn't go very good. And so now we're starting to start with a base product that hasn't been trained to do a different discipline, and we can put our team roping into it. And that's where I think the horses are evolving faster. They're understanding their job better. And the quality of guys, man, they've everybody has worked their tails off to be competitive in this space.
Kollin, I've kept you longer than I asked you for. Can I keep you for just a couple more minutes if you got time?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about horses. Tell me about the horses the horse and or horses that you're going to have with you and going to be riding when you get to the national finals, or have you made that decision yet?
I haven't made that decision. The horse I rode at the Governor's Cup, about the last 2 weeks of my rodeo season, he was starting to get pretty sore. I actually am taking him to the vet tomorrow to figure out exactly what we got going on. I hope he's the answer. But even at the Governor's Cup, he didn't work as good as he could. He tried, but physically, some things were bothering him, and I'm gonna take a look at it. I do have a couple of other horses here, but one thing about this deal is it's a business. I'm not proud enough to not ride somebody else's horse either. If depending on how all my vet work stuff goes, I will pick whatever horse I think we have the best chance to win on.
Yeah. Especially, the Governor's Cup's kind of an interesting test because it's a little arena just like the Thomas and Mack, and so
Yep.
I mean, it's 2 months away, obviously, until the national final starts now, but at least you got a chance to get a feel for how they're going to handle a small arena like that.
Yeah, and I think the pressure of the Governor's Cup is what feels like the NFR to me.
Yeah.
The thing is, the NFR, a guy can try to duplicate that, and it just never works, man. When you get to the NFR, it's like the cattle run so fast the first couple nights that people don't understand. It looks just like you're practicing, but they do not understand how hard them cattle run. And Bobby Joe Hill, I don't know what he feeds them, but even during the run throughs, you don't think the cows are running as hard this year. And the first night of competition, man, there, I will make a prediction that there will be headers miss the barrier the first night, and it'll be because it's just hard to believe the cattle leave there and run that hard.
Yeah.
And then once everybody gets in the groove, that's when it starts getting real fun to watch.
Bobby Joe's steers aren't sponsored by Red Bull or anything, right? No,
I don't know, but he feeds them some stuff that'll fly an airplane. I know that.
Before I let you go, I was just thinking back on 2015, and I remember I was still doing the radio broadcast at the time for the NFR, and I remember that year that the team roping crown was split. You won the healing title, and your header did not. Luke did not win the heading title, and it came down right to the last night and the last crunching of numbers. Do you remember that? Tell me about that.
Oh yeah. That was kind of a weird emotion for me, is because I didn't need another world title, and I really wanted Luke to win one. And to be honest, Junior was in the mix at that time, and he had never won the world either. Me personally, I was really wanting Luke to win it and Junior to win it, because that was the year Jake Barnes was hurt, and I thought if we could place high enough, Luke still had more money than JoJo Lamont, and that's where I thought the split could come from. Would be Junior could win the heeling, Luke could win the heading. And I'm not a real big numbers guy at the end of to know exactly what a guy needs to do, because there's only so much I can do, is what I believe. And so, but when that got split, and then I was the one that won it, a guy feels terrible for Luke. And Junior, them are two of my best friends, and I felt bad that they didn't do it. And so it was kind of a deal. I was excited I did, but I felt bad for them too.
Was the final steer at the Governor's Cup experiences of things like what you did in Las Vegas in those trips to the National Finals Rodeo? Did it feel anything like that?
That's what I told Andrew too. We work at this all the time. Every team roper does practices. You work at it, and there's no way to go through a year and not have wins and losses. You understand winning and losing, but when it's the fourth down, you need the Hail Mary to hit. There's just that's them are the scripts you make up practicing, so you could have somewhat of that feel. And there is no feeling like it. That's the fun part of that. That's the reason we practice so hard. And so them wins like that are the fun ones.
Kollin VonAhn did not just sneak into the National Finals Rodeo. If you look at the world standings on the healing side, Levi Lord is number one, $201,000, and you're right there in the middle of the pack at number 8.
Yep.
$125,000, which go-rounds are going to pay, I forget the exact number, roughly $30,000. Not quite that much, but close to it. It's anybody's ball game when you guys get to Las Vegas with the money that's available.
And it always is. Whoever has the best 10 nights out there will have the best chance to win the world title. You obviously, Levi Lord, you have Junior Noguera. There's guys that are the front runners that have earned their position into being toward the front of the pack, but one thing about them 10 nights out there, anything can happen, and whoever gets on the best roll out there will have a very good chance at the end.
Last question, Kollin. If Caden Profili or if Tanner Braden or if Colby Payne, they're all there for the first time. If one of them calls you up and says, hey, what do you think? What advice have you got for me? You going to give them any? What are you going to tell them?
Oh, for sure. And them guys roped great. That Caden Profili has roped. He roped great last year. He roped unbelievably great this year. And, one thing about this deal, we're all friends. We all want an edge, and we usually try to get that through overworking and through our horses. But we're all friends out here. I know Tanner rode my horse someplace this year, and, shoot, he was ahead of me. There's just no way. Guys are pretty good to guys out here. And them guys, shoot, I would give them any advice and would do the best I could. But, some of it is you got to feel your way through it and what works perfect for the person, too.
Yeah, you got it. It's going to be fun to watch you rope for 10 nights out there, Kollin. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm excited.
I asked Kollin for a few minutes. I kept him for half an hour, which is fairly normal for me. Kollin, congratulations. Good luck, and enjoy the next couple of months, and we'll see you in Las Vegas in December.
Sounds good. Thank you, Steve.
That's world champion team roper Kollin VonAhn. He's punched his ticket to the Wrangler National Finals Rodeo. Got a couple of interviews already in the can, as it would, that we will share with you over the next couple of days. We'll pick up the pace a little bit on some Steve Kenyon podcast shows between now and the NFR. Tiata Gray, she's from New Mexico, has qualified for the national finals, the first time in the breakaway roping. Later this week, we're talking to Haley Kinzel about heading back to the NFR, trying to win that 5th world title. Our show sponsored by Wrangler, by the Justin Boot Company, by Equinity, online at teamequinity.com. Thank you to Resistol. We live it every day. M2 Ranch Jerky, unbeatable feeds. To Next Gen Rodeo, to the Gooding Pro Rodeo in Gooding, Idaho. Of course, our featured interviews sponsored by Classic Equine and by Classic Ropes. We'll do this all over again next week. We hope you will join us. Stay tuned. Tiata Gray and Haley Kinzel, both coming up here on the Steve Kenyon Podcast. God bless everybody. I'm Steve Kenyon. Thanks for listening.